Welcome back to another episode of Get Swifty. My name's Bo, and today we're going to be taking a look at recreating some designs from Dribbble. And if you like this content and want to see more, definitely subscribe. I've got a lot more coming. This is the first episode in a series where we take a design from an online source and recreate it using SwiftUI. For this one, we're going to grab a design from Dribbble, or as I like to call it, Dribbble. This one looks good to me. I'll leave a link to this design in the description. Let's start a new project. We'll start with a single screen app, and I'm going to call that Money Manager because that's what the design appears to be. SwiftUI interface and the SwiftUI app lifecycle, and we're not going to worry about core data or testing. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a new view for the cards at the top of this screen. And then I'll create a new group to store these views, just to keep things nice and neat. And then I struggle here a little bit with code completion, but restarting Xcode fixes that. Now building this card from the top down, we start with a H stack, and that way we can put a spacer in front of the image and push it all the way across to the right. Underneath that, I'll add the balance and value. Now I've wrapped both the currency and the value in a H stack so that we can style them differently. So you'll see me go back and forth here a few times, changing things up, swapping them out, seeing how they feel, tweaking values. That's completely normal. In fact, this process was a lot more painful in the UI kit because every time you made a change, you had to wait for a rebuild to happen and then load up the simulator. Great thing with SwiftUI is that I can see these changes happen instantly. And this is pretty much how I build my apps, just like what you're seeing here. And sometimes I'll spend way too long on one little tiny UI element. Alright, well now I need to find a logo. And I'm ashamed to admit that I spent way too long looking for the perfect one. I finally settled on the logo from the official Visa website, and I just dragged those into the asset catalog. Now the logo that we have doesn't quite match the designs because it's got some color in it, so we'll set render as to template image. Then we'll remove the background and set the foreground color to white. Now I'm just going to set it to the correct color by using UI Colors Color Literal and grabbing the eyedropper and just pulling the color straight from the design. You can see that there's also two different designs here for these cards. So there's one that's the current selected version and there's one that's the deselected version. So what we'll need to do is we'll add a isSelected state and we'll use the toggle of that to determine what color the card will be. We also need to make sure that we change the color of the text so that contrasts well with the blue background. Now I'm just trying to get the currency to line up with the value text. Again, you can see that there's a bit of back and forth here in trying to get the code to match up with the designs. Going back to the main content view, we'll put these cards in a scrolling list. And we'll add a shadow. Then we'll set the first card to be selected. Then we'll wrap the whole thing in a scroll view. just need to make a few more adjustments here. Yep, I'm super happy with how this has turned out. Let's do some work on the title. I started out using a regular text view, but then I just remembered that the navigation view has a title in it and it does all the work for me. And then you can see that I needed a little bit of help from Stack Overflow, because what I was trying to do is set the background color of this navigation view. And the only way I could find to do that was to use a Z-stack. So I'm not going to bother with the plus sign on the left and the profile picture at the top right. I want to jump straight into doing this bottom section, this transactions list. And each row will be a separate view of its own. And inside this we'll have our icon image on the left, a V-stack with the 2 text elements, and the transaction value on the far right. And once again, we'll add a preview. So now I just want to go back to the main content view and clean things up a little bit. Because once we add the new content, it might start pushing our code off the side of the screen, and that doesn't make for very good video. I'll drop our new transaction view in here, and let's give it a run. Perfect. Ignore the yellow bar at the top. This is an Xcode bug. This is because it's being rendered on my external GPU. Nothing I can do about it until Apple fixes it. If you're having the same issue, you can go to your simulator settings and just say prefer internal video card or integrated video card. And now I'm just going to move this card list out into its own file, just to clean up this content view even more. Let's do the same for transaction row. It's always good to get into the habit of splitting your code up into multiple files. I think it's time to apply some styling to this transactions list. I'll start by rounding off these corners. And then we'll add this little top section. We could use a Z-stack here and set some offsets, but because a V-stack draws its contents in order, all we'll need to do is just set the spacing to something negative, and then they'll just overlap automatically. And once I got this all working, I felt the need to clean it up a little bit. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think I want to finish this off with a tab view. Now, if you haven't realized already, this entire series that I'll be doing, where we find a design online or try and recreate some other app using SwiftUI, isn't meant for you to follow along with. I've left everything in. So I've sped things up a lot, but this is my process and this is how I approach building apps. And these videos are designed so that you can see what it's like for an actual developer to go through this process, what it's like for a designer to approach you and say, hey, this is what needs to be done. Can you build it? So don't try and follow along with these because you'll be deleting and rewriting code over and over again. What I will do though is add a link to the final build of this in the description. There's no model objects or anything like that, and nothing actually works. It's all hard-coded values, but you can take a look, and if you want to play around with it, you can do that. Once again, I'm going to do a little bit more cleanup here. This is where I spend way too long trying to guess the correct SF symbols. Don't do this, just open up the app and go look at them yourself. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. And if there's any designs you want me to try and recreate in SwiftUI next time, let me know in the comments and I'll give it a go. But until then, see you later.